On this episode of the podcast, I'm going to be talking about the way you can best peak yourself ready for an Ironman. So, we're going to be talking about the last big weekend of training, 2 weeks out before your Ironman race week, and how we can effectively taper and get you really fresh, ready for race day. But the big focus of this is going to be talking about how you can best use the last remaining time you've got before your Ironman. So, firstly, you can bring yourself into peak condition. And secondly, that you don't try and do too much in the last couple of weeks and then you end up at race day really fit, but also really fresh and feeling really ready to go. So as I'm recording this episode, it's time to go out 2 weeks before Ironman Wales. We've had a huge number of athletes join Team Oxygenaddict this year through our collaboration with the Ironman Wales team. And we've got tons of athletes racing. I think we've got about 45 athletes racing Ironman Wales. And so partly this podcast is for them. It's to talk you through your race simulation weekend, what to expect, what to do, all the little tricks we've got around that, but also to then talk about the importance of the taper and the importance of not trying to do too much, too close up to the race. Some of the mistakes we've seen athletes make in the past that we want to help you avoid doing. So first up, the big picture here. We want you to arrive at race day really fit and ready to go, but also not tired at all. So you feel really fresh and in the best position to use the fitness that you've built. And unfortunately, those two things don't always coincide together. You can obviously keep training all the way up to race day. You can do big sessions all the way into race week in the hope that you're going to keep getting fitter. But it's been our experience that any big sessions, any closer than sort of 14 days before race day, they do make you fitter, but you don't have the time to recover from them and shed the fatigue from them in time for race weekend. And so that's why we give the advice of doing the last big weekend of training 2 weekends before race day. In the past, we've had athletes who've tried to do one last big weekend workout or even one last big bike workout a week before race day. And I think it does go away to sort of making you feel better in your mind that you're fit enough to go for race day. And it is a big challenge after all, but you don't have the time to recover and shed the fatigue. So what we found for working age groupers, that 2 week period of tapering down, not that you're going to do nothing, and the tapers, it's simple but not easy, I think the phrase is. You're not going to do nothing during those 2 weeks, but we're not going to do anything really long because we want to make sure that you're fresh and ready to feel just fantastic as well as feeling really fit. And there's a big difference there. If you're really fit, but you're still really tired, you'll feel really flat on race day. Yes, you'll get round, but it won't be a great performance and you won't feel good. So the first thing we're going to talk about then is the race simulation weekend. We spread this out over either 2 or 3 days, usually Friday evening, Saturday, Sunday morning, or sometimes we have it all day Saturday and into Sunday morning, and I'll explain more. We're going to look at doing the vast majority of an Ironman distance over a weekend broken up into chunks. We're going to do the swim all in one go. We're then going to do a big bike ride followed by a 45-minute run, and then we're going to do a 2-hour run on the Sunday morning. So we schedule this so that the athlete swims on the Friday, again, ideally on the Friday night, because we're trying to compress this into the time to try and make it as much like a broken Ironman as possible. If you don't have the chance to do that, if your only option is to swim Friday morning, that's totally fine to do the big swim Friday morning, the big brick Saturday, the big run Sunday. It's also absolutely fine if your only option for open water swimming is a Saturday morning. That can work perfectly as well. You can be really organized, get up really early, do the swim in open water first thing Saturday, do the big bike run on the Saturday, and then do your run on the Sunday as well. So we're not precious about the exact timing of all of this, but the idea is we're compressing most of an Ironman into about a 36-hour window. And so, the Friday night through to early Sunday morning ends up being about 36 hours, or perhaps even better, especially for really fit athletes, if you can do the swim, or you want to do the swim the Saturday morning before you do the ride. That can work really well, especially for athletes who are on the 2nd, 3rd, 4th Ironman and are really looking for a performance. I don't think you have to do it that way, especially not for first timers. It's fine to spread it out over the 3 days. But for our athletes who are looking for the really peak performance, I'm really happy for them to do that swim on the Saturday morning. So let's talk about what the weekend looks like. First up, everything that we do during the race sim weekend is designed to simulate your race day. No surprises. So we want it to be as similar to race day as it's going to be on race day. So we want the equipment to be as similar as possible. We want the terrain to be as similar as possible. We want the conditions, the weather ideally to be as similar as possible. And obviously we can't control weather, but we can control the courses that we use, whether we swim in a pool, in open water, in salt water. Try and make it as much like your goal race as possible. With some planning, if you're doing a hilly race like Ironman Wales and the run is fairly predictable in the length of the hills, if you go and have a look on the course map, if you can find a run that's like that or a bike that's got similar hills for your bike workout, even better. If you can't, don't worry about it. If you live in a really flat part of the country and you have to do your ride on the flat, that's totally fine. But the more that you can make it like race day, the better. So we're going to kick off either the Friday, the morning, the evening, or even Saturday morning with a big swim. We're going to swim 3.8 to 4 kilometers, ideally in open water, ideally in the same sort of water that you're going to be racing in. So salt water, if you're going to be swimming at saltwater Ironman Wales, for an example, wear the wetsuit that you're going to wear on the day, wear the swim hat you're going to wear on the day, wear the same goggles, wear the tri-suit underneath it. You're trying to make everything as similar as possible. Now, all of our athletes listening, the vast majority at least, will already have done one race simulation weekend already. In some cases, that won't have happened because of illness and injury, but we've certainly scheduled them. I know a lot of our listeners or YouTube viewers perhaps won't have had the opportunity to do a race sim weekend already. So it's really important to think about this in advance and plan it out. Plan that you're going to wear the same clothes that you're going to wear on race day. You're usually going to get given a relatively cheap swim cap, for example, from the Ironman. It's usually not a really nice one. So wear the same kind of swim cap that you're going to get off the Ironman people, one of the cheap ones rather than one of the nicer swim caps, for example. And then you know what it's going to be like. If you've got the chance and you think you're going to have to wear 2 swim caps on race day because of the temperature, do this in your race sim. You want as many things as possible to be the same in your race sim so that nothing is a surprise on race day. For the swim, think about having body glide or some kind of lube around the neck and the cuffs of your suit so that you don't end up getting chafe around the neck and around the cuffs and in the armpits, things like that. You really want to be thinking about this stuff for the race sim and ideally not making any mistakes. But if there are mistakes to be made, this is the safest environment to make them in. Okay, so for the swim, we want the same suit, the same hat, the same goggles, ideally the same water that you're going to be swimming in. And you're going to go and do a 3.8K swim. You're going to get into the water without a warm-up because you're not going to get one on race day. Go straight into the water and use the first part of the swim as a warm-up. And again, the theme here is make things as similar as possible that you're going to experience come race day. Okay? So there's your swim done, either Friday morning before work, Friday evening after work, Saturday morning before your big break. Day 2. This is the meat and potatoes for your race sim week out. It's going to be a really big ride. We're going to be riding for 180K on the bike, and then we're going to run 45 minutes off the bike as soon as possible after finishing the bike. So again, you're going to need to be organized, have your running kit ready to go. And for cycling, we're going to have as much as possible the same kit on that you're going to use on race day. So if you're riding in a tri-suit, wear that. If you're wearing shorts and a cycling top, wear that. The key is to try and make it as replicable as possible so that on race day, nothing feels weird and nothing feels different. Same helmet, same sunglasses, same gloves if you wear them, same shoes, race bike, race wheels, race tires. It's a really good opportunity to get everything sorted ahead of this weekend and try everything out now. So then you've got nothing else that you need to change. I would advise you, if you're going to do things like get the chain changed on your bike or even get the cassette changed on your bike, getting this done ahead of the race sim weekend means that it's definitely going to be bedded in time, and you know there's no problems with it in time for your actual race day. I'd prefer it if athletes had the new chain and cassette and whatever else sorted well before race sim weekend. But 2 weeks is still plenty of time to get that sorted. If you know that you need to get that sorted, then take care of it now. Again, the key thing is you want as many things to be as similar in the race sim weekend so that you know how that's going to be on race day. So 180K in race kit on your race bike with your race wheels in the race position. You've trained up for this at this point. You're more than capable of doing those distances and durations in that kit. And don't be surprised if you find yourself going much faster in the race sim than you have in training, because it's the cumulative effect of the skin suit, the aero helmet, the race tires, the proper inner tubes or the tubeless that you're using, the race wheels, being in the position and focused for that time. This is your attempt to try and make it as much like race day as possible. Now, this is going to extend over into your fueling on the bike and your refueling on the bike. So have your plan ready. Our athletes will have the race day planner already filled out. If you're not a coached athlete by us, at the bare minimum, you need to know the amount of fluid per hour you need to take, the concentration of electrolytes that goes in there, and the number of grams of carbs per hour that you're going to need to take. And you need to come up with a plan for a way to carry that stuff so that you can be self-sufficient. Now, it might be for the race sim, you have to plan to stop along the way at service stations or at little shops. Totally fine. It might be that you have to do loops on the bike. Again, totally fine if you need to come back and refuel and refill your water. But have the plan in place ahead of time of where you're going to stop so you don't have to think about this while you're out there, or worse, not have any options available to you while you're out there. So it's a really good time ahead of the race sim to think about, right, I'm going to need to be carrying, I don't know, I'm going to say 1,800 calories as a rough finger in the air. How am I going to do that? Is it going to be a mix of solids, gels, drink mixes? Where am I going to carry the solids and gels if I'm wearing a skin suit? Am I going to need a little bento box on my top tube? Am I going to need something between my tri bars? You've got time ahead of the race sim weekend to work this stuff out. Don't leave it until race sim day to be struggling to carry this stuff around with you. And again, everything you have to wear to carry stuff over the top of a skin suit is costing you time and speed over just wearing a skin suit. So you've got to have a very good reason to have extra clothing on. If you can find a way to carry the food, for example, in a little bento box on the top tube, no aerodynamic penalty to that whatsoever, compared to thinking, well, I'll just stick a cycling jersey over the top and, fill the back pockets full of food. Probably going to cost you 1 kilometer an hour in terms of aerodynamic gains. It's as much as that. So plan it ahead of time, especially if you're an athlete who is performance focused, and especially if you're an athlete who is pushing up against the cutoffs and for every 10 minutes is really going to make a difference here. Being as aerodynamic as possible is really going to help you. Okay, so 180K ride done at the race intensity. So my advice here is go to bestbikesplit.com. You can search the various courses that are in there. You can pull out the course for your race. So in the case of Ironman Wales, pull out the Ironman Wales course. Have it analyze one of your previous training rides, and it will give you power guidance numbers as to what you need to ride to. You can even download the actual power navigation file for your Garmin. It's as good as cheating. It will do away with so much of the problems of people going far too hard early on or going far too hard up the hills. Just having their little power cheat sheet printed out will go a long way to giving you the right guidance relative to your own FTP level and fitness and aerodynamics and stuff. There's loads of free stuff available at bestbikesplit.com. We're not affiliated with them, but we think it's a fantastic package. So go and make use of it. And it will pretty accurately predict how long the bike is going to take you at your fitness with your body weight on your equipment. And really, that's a really good lead then you can then take to think, well, I know the bike is going to take me roughly 6.5 hours, say, for example. It's really common at Ironman Wales for the bike to take a lot longer than people are expecting. It's not a fast course. It's a very slow course, in fact. And so I'd rather you know ahead of time that it's going to take you perhaps half an hour or an hour more than you perhaps think it's going to, so you can prepare for that mentally ahead of time. Okay? So there's a 180K ride, and then we're going to follow this up with a 45-minute run off the bike. I advise all these runs are done as 9 minutes run, 1 minute walk. Wear some kind of GPS on your wrist with some kind of heart rate monitor. And then when you get back, you can compare the pace that you ran and you can compare the heart rate that you're at relative to a standard run that you would do, and see how much drift and there is in the heart rate or not. If your heart rate is considerably higher than after a standard standalone run, it's likely you're going to have to dial the power down a little bit for race day. Okay. Now then, pace for the run is pretty much the best case scenario for almost all athletes is going to be e-pace, is going to be the Jack Daniels pace predictor, which you can Google if you're not one of our athletes. That's a really good best case scenario for most people's Ironman marathon. It doesn't look fast on paper. It never does. Almost every athlete thinks I'm going to be able to run much faster than that. I have very rarely seen any athlete run faster than their e-pace, certainly at an age group level. Lots of people think they can. Lots of people perhaps do that for the first 10 or 15 kilometers, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about whether you can maintain that pace for the entire marathon. And your fastest marathon is going to come about by running at an even pace across the whole way, not by going out too hard and fading horribly. So we're going to prepare for this in training. We're going to do 45 minutes off the bike as 9:1 at e-pace. We're going to check our heart rate. And if everything's gone to plan, if your power's been correct on the bike, your heart rate is going to be where you expect it to be, and everything's fantastic. So you've now done a 180k ride. You've done a 45-minute run off the bike. You're then going to go and refuel. You're going to go to bed early. You're going to try and relax because I want you to get up first thing Sunday morning and go out for a 2-hour run. And then you'll have run 2 hours 45 across the weekend off the back of a hard 180k ride. That's going to set you up really well for peak fitness. Again, the Sunday morning run needs to be at e-pace, no faster than that, done as a 9:1 run walk. And again, compare your heart rate to what it would usually be on a standard run. Let's see if there are any variations. And again, having that heart rate much higher than you would expect it to be is a sign that you've perhaps gone a little bit too hard on the bike the day before. So lots to think about there. Key thing on that Sunday run is you need to fuel the same way that you'll need to fuel during the marathon on race day. So it's really typical for an athlete who's well trained to be able to do a 2-hour run without needing any carbohydrates and without really needing much in the way of fluid as well. You can get through it like that, but that is not the way to prepare for an Ironman marathon. You're starting an Ironman marathon already fuel depleted, probably a little bit dehydrated. So you need to practice in training the fueling and the hydration strategy that you'll use on race day, which means you're going to need, roughly 750 milliliters of fluid per hour minimum, with the right electrolyte balance in minimum, and somewhere in the region of 60 to 90 grams of carbohydrate per hour as well. Even if you're already well refueled from the day before, the key here is you're practicing doing it. So you need a way to carry that fluid and fuel. Might be a good idea to do your run as a series of laps so you can pick up bottles and you can pick up gels strapped to the bottle along the way. Whatever your particular fueling strategy is going to be, that's the thing to think about. You need to practice that as part of your run in the morning. Now, you don't necessarily have to get up really early and have a massive breakfast before it. It's good practice to go out and do this with the fluid and the carbs that you'll have on race day. Have a light breakfast an hour before perhaps, but you don't need to overly stress a massive carbohydrated breakfast because a part of the run is practicing the feeding, the fueling and the electrolytes that you'll need come race day. Now, at the end of that racing weekend, you're going to feel pretty tired. You're going to be pretty well done. Even though you're really fit, probably that'll be the culmination of the training that you've done. And it might be the hardest weekend of training you've ever done. So get through it. It's okay to be really tired at the end of it. Get yourself away and recover as best you possibly can after that. So typically you're going to be tired. So plan to not do much that day if you possibly can. It's not a great day to have promised that you'll mow the lawn or go out for a 10-mile hike with the family. You're going to need to be physically resting for the rest of that day. And from that point on, we're into the taper in the lead up to your race day. So we're going to have 2 complete rest days after this big weekend. Reasonable that you're going to feel very tired and you're going to need more sleep after them. But the big thing to expect during the taper is it's really common to not feel good. And in fact, to feel pretty unpleasant from the Wednesday through to the following Wednesday to feel really flat, to feel really tired. That's totally normal. It's all part of your body shedding that fatigue and feeling really weird around the fact that you're mostly going to be doing 30-minute or maximum 45-minute workouts daily during that taper period. Your body's used to doing much more than that, and it kind of won't know what's going on. So you need to mentally be really strong and tell yourself, I know that this is happening. I know that I feel weird. Coach Rob has said I'm going to feel really strange during the taper, but it is going to work. Your body is going to shed that fatigue. And come the Wednesday or Thursday of race week, you're going to start to feel great. And by Thursday or Friday of race week, you're going to feel fantastic. And the short run that you do on the day before race day, you're going to feel absolutely brilliant with really fresh, bouncy, springy legs. But that won't happen if you are tricked by your mind into doing more training during that 10 days worth of taper than I've just described. If you get tricked into doing a 3 or 4 hour ride at the weekend, all the magic's gone. You're not going to freshen up in time for it, unfortunately. So trust the taper will do its job. Know that it's normal to feel pretty average at best during the taper period. Okay? Loads of things you can do mentally to stay on top of stuff while you're in the taper period, getting your bags prepped and getting your race plan prepped and all of that kind of stuff. But physically training isn't the thing to be doing. Okay, that's bringing us to the end of this episode then. That's covered how we go about physically doing the sessions in the race sim weekend, the purpose of the race sim weekend, everything being as much like race day as possible, down to fueling, electrolytes, hydration, carbohydrate, the clothes that you wear, the kit that you're using. Make as much of that as possible like your race day is going to be, and you're going to find yourself in a fantastic shape. Really peaks. Your body is going to be at the peak of its training, peak of its fitness, and then you shed all of that fatigue and the form is going to come through and you're going to feel fantastic for race day. If you are racing Ironman Wales, I wish you all the best of luck in the world. There'll be a ton of Team Oxygenaddict athletes down there in the kit, so give each other the thumbs up and the shouts as you go by. And you've trained a long time for this race. I hope it goes really well for you. You deserve it. And I'll be keeping my fingers crossed that you have good luck on race day. And that brings us to the end of this week's show. Here are some discount codes and deals for you. At precisionfuelandhydration.com, you can use the code OXYGEN24 for 15% off your first electrolyte order. You can use their free fuel and hydration planning tool to receive a personalized strategy for your next race. The planner will help you understand your own carbohydrate, electrolyte, and fluid needs so you can refine your strategy during training. And don't forget, you can also book a free one-to-one video consultation with PF&H's athlete support team, and they'll be happy to help you nail your race nutrition plan and help you perform at your best come race day. And over at teamoxygenaddict.com, I think we've got the most comprehensive triathlon coaching program for busy age groupers. If you're looking for high-quality, proven coaching for Ironman or 70.3 triathlon this year, you can check out the details of our coaching packages on our website. And the big news from this week onwards is Team Oxygenaddict is open again for new members. So if you're interested, there's a link in the show notes to book a membership call with us and see if you'd be a good fit for joining the team. If you've already joined our waiting list during the summer, then we'll be getting in contact with you to offer you the chance to book a membership call first. But act fast, guys. We would love to have you be part of our team going forwards and help you reach your triathlon goals for next year. So remember, there's links in the show notes so you don't have to remember them. And until next week, have a great, safe training and racing week. I'm Coach Rob Wilby, and you've been listening to the Oxygen Addict podcast.